The moment I opened my bedroom door, I knew someone had betrayed me. Not because my jewelry was missing, not because my clothes had disappeared, but because the one thing my grandmother had warned me never to lose was gone. The little wooden box sitting inside my closet was missing, and my sister was the only person who had ever known where I kept it. I stood in the doorway, staring at the empty shelves, trying to understand what I was seeing. My room looked like someone had gone through it with a purpose. My laptop was gone. My jewelry box was gone. My childhood photographs were gone. Even the old letters I had kept in the bottom drawer were missing. But the wooden box bothered me most. That box wasn't valuable. At least, not in the way my family thought. It was scratched, faded, and barely held together. My grandmother had given it to me 3 days before she died. She had held my hand and said something I didn't understand at the time. "If anyone ever tries to take this from you, don't fight them." I had laughed. I thought she was being dramatic. She wasn't. She leaned closer and whispered, "Let them take it." Then she looked toward my mother and lowered her voice. "Because what's inside will tell you exactly who you can trust." I never told anyone about that conversation. Not my parents, not my sister, nobody. So when I saw that the box was gone, my entire body went cold. Someone knew. Someone had found it. And suddenly my sister's strange behavior over the last few weeks made sense. I walked downstairs. My sister Claire was sitting on the sofa, casually scrolling through her phone. My mother was in the kitchen. My father was reading at the dining table. I looked at Claire. "Where are my things?" She didn't even look up. "What things?" "My things from my room," she shrugged. "I borrowed some stuff." "Borrowed?" "Yes." "You emptied my room." She finally looked at me. Then she smiled. "You weren't using most of it." I stared at her. "You took my grandmother's box." The smile disappeared, only for a second, but I saw it. That tiny change in her face told me everything. She knew exactly what I was talking about. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said. I looked at my mother. "Mom?" My mother didn't answer. That was when I understood something. Claire hadn't done this alone. My mother knew. Maybe my father knew too. I slowly walked toward the dining table. "Where's the box?" My father lowered his newspaper. "Why are you making such a big deal out of an old box?" I looked at him. Because he knew. He didn't know what was inside, but he knew enough to be worried. "I want my property back," I said. My mother sighed. "Your sister needed some things. She needed Grandma's box." Nobody answered. Claire stood up. "You know what, I'm tired of this." She walked toward the stairs. I followed her. "Claire," she turned. "Leave me alone. Give me the box." She stared at me for several seconds. Then she smiled. "You're going to regret asking for it." I stopped. "What does that mean?" She walked into her room and shut the door. I stood there staring at it, and for the first time I wasn't angry. I was scared, because Claire had never spoken like that before. I went back downstairs and grabbed my coat. My father asked where I was going. "To find my things." He laughed. "You're being ridiculous." I looked at him. "No, Dad." Then I said something that made him stop smiling. "I'm going to check the cameras." His face changed. That was the first mistake he made. He looked at my mother, just for a second. But I saw it. They were communicating without words. I walked into the small room where my father kept the security system. He followed me. "You don't need to do this." "Yes, I do." I opened the recordings. 2 days earlier, there was Claire, walking into my room. She came out carrying one of my bags. Then another. Then another. I kept watching. She made 7 trips. 7. My mother appeared halfway through. Claire handed her something. My mother looked inside, then nodded. My hands tightened around the chair. I continued watching. Then Claire returned to my room. This time she came out carrying the wooden box. She looked around. Then she opened it. My heart stopped. I zoomed in. Claire took out an envelope. She looked at it, and suddenly her face changed. She looked terrified. Then she put the envelope inside her jacket. My father reached toward the keyboard. I moved his hand away. "Don't." He stared at me. "There's nothing there." I looked at him. "You just told me there's nothing there." He said nothing. I rewound the footage. Claire took the envelope. Then she walked directly into my father's office. The camera didn't cover the inside, but 20 minutes later Claire came out. She wasn't carrying the envelope anymore. She had left it somewhere. I turned toward my father. "Where is it?" He said nothing. I stood up. "Where is Grandma's envelope?" My mother suddenly appeared in the doorway. "Stop." I looked at her. "Why?" "Because you're misunderstanding everything." "Then explain it." She couldn't. That was when I knew the truth was much bigger than a stolen box. I didn't confront them again. Instead, I went upstairs. Claire was gone. Her room was unlocked. I entered. The wooden box wasn't there. I checked the closet. Nothing, the drawers, nothing. Then I noticed something strange. One of the floorboards near the window looked newer than the others. I knelt down. I pressed my fingers against it. It moved. My heart started pounding. I pulled it up. There was a small space underneath, and inside was the wooden box. I picked it up. The lock was broken. Someone had forced it open. I opened it. The letters were still there. The photographs were still there. But the envelope was gone. I sat on the floor. My grandmother's warning came back to me. Let them take it. She knew someone would eventually steal it. She had planned for this. I started searching through the remaining papers. Most were old family documents. Then I found a folded piece of paper hidden underneath a photograph. I opened it. It was in Grandma's handwriting. There were only 2 sentences. Do not trust your parents with the house. I read it again, then again. My hands began shaking. The house, our house, the house my parents had always told me belonged to them, the house I had grown up in. Why would Grandma tell me not to trust them with it? I kept searching. At the bottom of the box was a key, a tiny brass key. I didn't recognize it. I looked at the back of the photograph. There was another note. Safety deposit box. My heart started racing. Grandma had left something somewhere. Something my parents didn't know about. And Claire had taken the envelope because she had found the first clue. I grabbed my phone. Then I remembered something. My grandmother's old bank had a branch only 20 minutes away. The next morning I went there. I showed them the documents proving I was her granddaughter. After several calls and questions, they told me there was a safety deposit box. But there was a problem. Only one person had access. My grandmother, unless she had left a legal authorization. I gave them the key. The manager looked at it, then looked at me. Your grandmother left instructions. What instructions? He opened a file. She said the box could be opened after her death only by the person named in her final documents. I swallowed. Who is that? He looked directly at me. You. I couldn't speak. Minutes later, I was sitting in a private room with a metal box in front of me. I opened it. Inside was a folder, a flash drive, several bank documents, and one sealed letter. My name was written on the front. I opened it. The first sentence made my heart stop. My dear girl, if you are reading this, your parents have probably already tried to take the house. I stopped breathing. I continued. Do not believe them when they tell you that I left the property to the family. I looked at the documents. The house wasn't my parents' property. Grandma had placed it in a trust, and the beneficiary was me. Not my mother, not my father, me. I stared at the document. Then I found the bank statement. There was an account in my name, a very large account. Money Grandma had quietly set aside for me. But the most shocking document wasn't about money. It was a copy of a legal agreement. My parents had tried to change ownership of the house, and they had failed, because Grandma had protected it. I read the final page. If they pressure you to sign anything, do not sign. My hands were shaking. Then I saw the flash drive. I took it home. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell Claire. That night I plugged it into my laptop. There were dozens of files. Most were old photographs. Then I found a video. The date was from 6 months before Grandma died. I clicked play. There she was, sitting in the same chair where she used to read. She looked tired, but her eyes were clear. If you're watching this, she said. Something went wrong. I covered my mouth. She continued. I know your parents believe I left them this house. She paused. I let them believe that. My heart started pounding. I knew they would try to take advantage of you. Then she said something that completely changed the story. Your sister knows more than you think. I froze. Claire. Grandma knew about Claire. She has been told that if she can convince you to sign away the property, everything will be transferred to her. I stopped the video. I couldn't breathe. My sister hadn't stolen my things because she wanted my clothes. She had been looking for documents. She wanted me to sign something, and my parents were helping her. I played the video again. Grandma continued. Do not fight them. Let them believe they have won. Make them show you what they are willing to do. Then she smiled sadly. Because once they reveal themselves, you won't have to convince anyone. You will have proof. The video ended. I sat in the dark for a long time. Then I smiled. For the first time since I opened my empty bedroom door, I wasn't afraid. I knew exactly what I had to do. I went home the next morning and acted as if I knew nothing. Claire was in the kitchen. She looked at me carefully. You okay? I smiled. I'm fine. She looked suspicious. What did you do yesterday? Nothing. She watched me for several seconds, then she smiled. Good. I walked away. For the next 2 weeks I played the part they expected. I complained about my missing belongings. I acted confused. I pretended I was considering signing whatever papers my parents wanted. And they became careless. Very careless. My mother started talking about the future. My father started asking when I would be willing to sign. Claire started talking about renovating the house. She even picked out new furniture. She thought the house was already hers. Then one evening my mother called a family meeting. Everyone sat at the table. My father placed a folder in front of me. We need to settle this tonight. I looked at the folder. What is it? An agreement. Claire smiled. You're going to sign over your interest in the house. I looked at her. Why? She laughed. Because you don't need it. My mother added. Your sister needs a stable home. I opened the folder. There were several pages. And on the final page was my signature, or what they believed was my signature. I looked at it carefully. Someone had copied my name. I slowly looked up. You forged this? Nobody answered. Claire's face went pale. My father stood up. You don't understand. No. I reached into my bag. I understand perfectly. I placed my phone on the table, then I pressed play. The first recording was Claire talking to my mother. If she signs it, the house is mine. My mother had replied, she won't know what Grandma left her. Then another recording. My father saying, she has no idea about the trust. The room went completely silent. Claire stared at me. Where did you get those? I looked at her. You taught me something. What? Always keep proof. Then I placed Grandma's documents on the table. My father picked them up. His hands started shaking. My mother began crying. Claire stood frozen. I looked at all three of them. You didn't steal my room because you wanted my things. You stole it because you were looking for evidence. Claire whispered. I can explain. No. I shook my head. You had your chance. She started crying. I was scared. Of what? That Grandma left you everything. I looked at her. And you thought taking it would change that? She said nothing. I stood up. You took my things. I pointed toward the folder. You tried to make me sign away my home. Then I looked at my parents. And you helped her. My father lowered his head. My mother cried harder. But I didn't yell. I didn't insult them. I didn't threaten them. I simply told them what would happen next. I'm not signing anything. My father looked up. Please, no. You're our daughter. I looked at him. And I was your daughter when you helped her empty my room. Silence. I was your daughter when you watched her take Grandma's box. Silence. I was your daughter when you tried to take my house. Nobody had an answer. I gathered the documents. Then I stood. You wanted me to feel powerless. I looked at Claire. But Grandma made sure I never would be. I walked toward the door. Claire called after me. Wait. I stopped. She whispered. Are you really going to take the house away from us? I turned around. No. She looked surprised. I'm not taking anything away from you. I held up the documents. You were never entitled to it. That sentence destroyed the confidence she had carried for years. The next morning my attorney sent the official notice. My parents had 30 days to move. Claire had to return every item she had taken. And the forged document was turned over for review. But something unexpected happened. My mother came to my house 3 days later. She didn't bring paperwork. She didn't bring excuses. She brought Grandma's wooden box. She placed it on my table. I found this in Claire's closet. I opened it. Everything was there. The letters. The photographs, the old family memories. Then my mother pulled out one final envelope. I found this behind the lining. I stared at it. It was addressed to me. I opened it. There was only one sentence. Never confuse keeping the peace with keeping people who refuse to respect you. I started crying. My mother sat across from me. I failed you. I didn't answer. I kept telling myself that Claire needed me more. She wiped her eyes. But I forgot that you needed a mother too. That was the first time she had ever said those words. I didn't forgive her that day. But I listened. And sometimes listening is the first step toward healing. Months passed. My parents moved into a smaller house. Claire found an apartment. I kept my grandmother's house. I repaired my room. I bought new shelves. I put my books back. I framed the photographs again. And I placed the wooden box beside my bed. But I never replaced everything. I left one shelf empty because I wanted to remember. Not the betrayal. The lesson. My sister took almost everything from that room. But she couldn't take the one thing she was actually searching for. The truth. Because the truth had never belonged to her. It belonged to me. And Grandma had made sure I would find it. A year later, Claire called me. She sounded different, calmer. She asked if we could meet. We sat at a small cafe. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "I used to think you were Grandma's favorite." I smiled sadly. "I never thought that." "I know that now." She looked down. "I thought she gave you everything because she loved you more." I shook my head. "She gave me responsibility." Claire nodded. "And I didn't understand that." She took a breath. "I was jealous, I know. I thought if I took what you had, I'd finally feel like I mattered." I looked at her. "And did it work?" She shook her head. "No." That answer was enough. We didn't suddenly become best friends. Life doesn't work like that. Some betrayals leave scars. But we finally stopped pretending, and that mattered. Because the biggest revenge I ever got wasn't watching my sister lose the house. It wasn't seeing my parents realize they had been wrong. It wasn't even proving that Grandma had chosen me. The real victory was much simpler. I stopped begging people to treat me with respect. I stopped believing that being a good daughter meant accepting everything. And I stopped confusing silence with peace. My sister took everything from my room. But when I found that old envelope, I found something much more valuable than anything she had stolen. I found the truth. And the truth gave me something nobody in my family could ever take away again. My voice, my choices, and the courage to finally choose myself. Because sometimes the person everyone thinks is the quietest in the family isn't weak. She's just waiting for the right moment to stop explaining herself. And when that moment comes, she doesn't need to scream. She doesn't need revenge. She simply opens the door, tells the truth, and walks away. And sometimes, that's the most powerful ending of all.